Hey there, it's Sam, and I'm making this video about the recent rape allegations that have been leveled against Bill Cosby, the American celebrity who is known for having a long career as a comedian and on numerous TV shows. In the last, actually the last few months, but within the last couple of weeks especially, there's been a slew of allegations that he raped women going back into the, I guess, into the 70s and 80s, date rape, drugs, and other things like that. So I want to look at his chart and see what we came up with. Now, he was born on July 12th, 1937. It's a pretty good confirmed birth time, especially relative to other celebrities. He was actually an astrologer, someone interested in astrology, asked for his birth time, actually met him somewhere, and he said around 12:30 in the morning on July 12th. So when you use the sidereal zodiac, the Lahiri numsha for 12:30, it's a very late Pisces ascendant. But if you move it forward even 10 minutes, it winds up going into Aries, which really makes more sense as far as I'm concerned. So I'm looking at an Aries chart. This is especially because of the arc of his career. When you have Pisces, it's a good chart as well, but you wind up with Saturn in the first. You wind up with, for instance, Mars in the 8th, and planets a little more hung up. When it's an Aries ascendant, you get a lot more Raja Yogas. The ruling planet goes into the 7th, which forms Raja Yoga. The moon, the 4th Lord, goes into the 5th, forms a Raja Yoga. Jupiter is in the 9th, aspecting the ascendant. So I'm thinking it's an Aries chart. He also has more qualities of Aries to me. He's a sort of a go-getter for sure, and a sort of trailblazer. So regardless, when we talk about the chart, you see he's got a Venus-Ketu conjunction. Venus is the planet of sex, sexuality. Ketu is about extracting just the pure essence of something. And also, it can, obviously lead to a lot of confusing, a very confused expression about something. Often you'll see that it makes the person very dissatisfied with the normal expression of something, which would be something like sexuality or pleasure or happiness, and they may, get off on some kind of perverted expression of something. Any planet joined either node can have that possibility. Often you'll see that it creates a very pure expression of something where the normal level of, let's say, lust or sexuality becomes dissatisfying, so they search for a higher expression of it. But sometimes it can also, that quest for perfection can turn into a sort of perversion. In the case of Bill Cosby, regardless of what the ascendant is, the nodes are debilitated, and I absolutely consider Ketu debilitated in Taurus and Rahu debilitated in Scorpio. And so one of the reasons why is because Ketu is about seeking that perfection in something and going deeply and being willing to transform and question ourselves and get into these deep kind of probing experiences around something, which is exalted in the Scorpio area of life, which that's what Scorpio is about. Taurus is about form, structure, pleasure, happiness, enjoyment. So when you get Ketu, this energy of transformation, deep transformation, and I mean real transformation. I don't mean the surface level of transformation, but I mean the thing that's not of this world, searching for that idyllic thing that's not of this world, and you get it in Taurus, which is a very material sign. It can get stuck. Because Ketu is where we need to not be stuck. Ketu is where we need to move through things. Rahu also, but Rahu is more external and Ketu is more internal. So again, you can see why the nodes are debilitated along this axis. Rahu in Scorpio creates this, Rahu is about our external obsessions and trying to obsess over something external in order to find like the true power, like, this is the thing. In Taurus, it gets very stabilized because Rahu is very unstable. So Rahu is exalted in Taurus, debilitated in Scorpio, because Scorpio is also very restless and unsettled. And it magnifies the sort of pathology of Scorpio and Rahu when they come together. And again, Ketu in Taurus magnifies the difficulty of Ketu, which is where we might get stuck in something. We might get stuck on the way we think it's supposed to be because we're searching for this high, beautiful, pure expression of something. We get stuck in it. We might get stuck in this idea with Ketu that it needs to be this perfect thing or nothing. And again, when Ketu's in Scorpio, that idea gets transformed, and we question it, and we go deeply into it, and we transform ourselves. When it's in Taurus, we wind up getting stuck in it and perhaps getting into pathological expressions. So Ketu Venus in Taurus, regardless of the ascendant, shows the possibility of some kind of perverted expression of sexuality and sensuality and pleasure. The other thing is that, again, this nodal axis is very implicated here. Whether he's guilty or not, which at this point it's hard to think he's not because too many respected women are coming out and saying this. But you'll see the issue come up. Now, this issue came up because, first of all, regardless of the ascendant, he's also in Saturn Venus Dasha right now. And it started at the end of 2012. And by transit, it's certainly indicated because his Mars is at 27 degrees Libra, and Saturn just went over it. In fact, it went over it, went back retrograde, and then went over it again in the last several months. So Saturn has been going back and forth over that Mars in Libra. Again, Mars in Libra, which is about sexuality, relationship. Saturn has been going over that Mars in Libra for the last year or so. And it's either in the 8th house or in the 7th house, depending on the ascendant. But again, I think it's 7th house. Regardless, though, you have to realize, you might say, well, it seems like the 8th house to me. But remember, Mars is the 8th lord, if it's Aries as well. Aries, the ruling planet Mars, also rules the 8th house. So there's still going to be an 8th house quality if it's Saturn going over Mars in Libra. And actually, this is how Vedic astrology works even more succinctly, because the planets are house rulers first. So that Saturn going through his 7th house for the last couple years is also going over Mars, which would be the 1st and the 8th house ruler. This is the other reason why I consider it. But now Saturn has moved into his 8th house, and it's going over his debilitated Rahu in the 8th, which is the way I see it. Now his natal Rahu is at 21 Scorpio, and Saturn is moving up to it, so I would say these next couple of years are not going to be so favorable for him. And we're getting into the time when these allegations originated, I believe. I believe they started around the mid-late 80s. And this was the last time Saturn was going through this section of the zodiac as well. So I don't know when he started or when these allegations began. It would be interesting to go back and look and see specifically the dates. But Saturn going back over that same area of the zodiac is interesting as well. It's very unfortunate, of course, to see this kind of thing happen. I talked about this in the previous video that I did on Saturn entering Scorpio, and actually talked about the potential of a lot of the grace that we've seen, well, grace or the evolving issues of Saturn going through Libra that we've been experiencing for the last couple of years, that we could see some of these things change. We've already seen it with this ISIS in the Middle East.